Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, Part 2, Chapter 1. The source, Chapter 1, The Boy Who Lived, Part 2. As he pulled into the driveway of number 4, the first thing he saw, and it didn't improve his mood, was the tabby cat who spotted that morning. It was now sitting on his garden wall. He was sure it was the same one. It had the same markings around its eye. "Shoo!" said Mr. Dursley loudly. The cat didn't move. It just gave him a stern look. Was this normal cat behavior? Mr. Dursley wondered. Trying to pull himself together, he let himself into the house. He was still determined not to mention anything to his wife. Mrs. Dursley had a nice, normal day. She told him over dinner all about Mrs. Next Door's problems with her daughter and how Dudley learned a new word. "Won't!" Mr. Dursley tried to act normally. When Dudley had been put to bed, he went into his living room in his time to watch the last report on the evening news. And finally, bird watchers everywhere have reported that the national owls have been behaving very unusual today. Although owls normally hunt at night and are hardly ever seen in daylight, there have been hundreds of sightings of these birds flying in every direction since sunrise. Experts are unable to explain why the owls are suddenly changed their sleeping pattern. The newscaster allowed himself a grin. Most mysterious, and now over to Jen McGuffin. With the weather going to be any more showers of owls tonight? Jim. "Well," said the weatherman, "I don't know about that, but it's not only the owls that have been acting oddly today. Years as far apart as can. Yorkshire, Yorkshire, and Dudley have been phoning in to tell me that instead of the rain I promised yesterday, they'll have a downpour of shooting the stars. Perhaps people have been celebrating bonfire night early. It's not until next week, folks, but I can promise a wet night tonight." Mr. Dursley sat frozen in his armchair, shooting stars all over Britain. Owls flying by daylight, mysterious people in cloaks all over the place, and a whisper about the Potters. Mrs. Dursley came into the living room carrying 2 cups of tea. It was no good. They'll have to say something to her. He cleared his throat nervously. "Ooh. Petunia, dear, you haven't heard from your sister lately, have you?" As he had expected, Mrs. Dursley looked shocked and angry. After all, they normally pretend she didn't have a sister. "No," she said sharply. "Why?" "Funny stuff on the news," Mr. Dursley mumbled. "Owls shooting stars." "And there were a lot of funny-looking people in town today." "So?" snapped Mrs. Dursley. "Well, I just thought maybe it was something to do with, you know, her crowd." Mrs. Dursley sipped her tea, stopped pursed lips. Mr. Dursley wondered whether he'd dare to tell her the name Potter. He decided he didn't dare. Instead, he said, as casually as he could. Their son he'll be about Dursley age now, without I suppose so, said Mrs. Dursley stiffly. What's his name again? Harbour, isn't it? Harry. That's the common name, if you ask me. Oh yes, said Mr. Dursley, his heart sinking horribly. Yes, I quite agree. He didn't say another word on the subject as they went upstairs to bed, while Mrs. Dursley was in the bathroom. Mr. Dursley crept to the bedroom window and peered down into the front garden. The cat was still there. It was staring down Cribb's driver as though it were waiting for something. Was he imagining things? Could all his could all this have anything to do with the Potters? If it did, if it got out they were related to a pair of, well, I didn't think they could be her. The Dursleys got into bed. Mrs. Dursley fell asleep quickly, but Mr. Dursley lay awake, turning over in his mind his last comforting thought before he fell asleep was that even if the Potters were involved, there was no reason for them to come near him and Mrs. Dursley. The Potters knew very well what he and Aunt Petunia thought about them and their kind. They couldn't see how he and Petunia could get mixed up in anything that might be going on. He yawned and turned over. It could affect them. How very wrong he was. Mr. Dursley might have been drifting into the uneasy sleep, but the cat on the wall outside was showing no sign of sleepiness. It was hiding as still as a statue, its eye fixed unblinkingly on the far corner of Private Drive. It didn't so much as quiver when a cat door slammed on the next street, nor when two cows swooped overhead. In fact, it was nearly midnight before the cat moved at all. A man appeared on the corner. The cat had been watching appear so suddenly and silently. Jill had thought it just popped out of the ground. The cat's tail twisted and its eyes narrowed. Nothing like this man had ever been seen on Private Drive. He was tall, thin, and very old, judging by the silver of his hair and beard, which were both long enough to tuck into his belt. He was wearing long robes, a purple cloak that swept the ground, and high-heeled buckled boots. His blue eyes were light, bright, and sparkling behind half-moon spectacles, and his nose was very long and crooked, as though it had been broken at least twice. This man's name was Albus Dumbledore. Albus Dumbledore didn't seem to realize that he had just arrived in the street where everything from his name to his boots was unwelcome. He was busy rummaging in his cloak, looking for something, but he didn't seem to realize he was being watched because he looked up suddenly at the cat, which was still staring at him from the other end of the street. For some reason, the sight of the cat seemed to amuse him. He shook and muttered, "I should have known." He found what he was looking for in his inside pocket. It seemed to be a silver cigarette lighter. He flickered it open, held it up in the air, and clicking, the nearest street lamp went out in a little pop. He clicked it again. The next lamp flickered into darkness 12 times. He clicked it put odor until the only lights left in the whole street were two tiny pinpricks pinpricks in the distance, which were the eyes of the cat watching him. If anyone looked out of their window now, even barely Mrs. Dursley, they wouldn't be able to see anything that was happening. Down on the pavement, Dumbledore slipped the put outer back inside his cloak and set off down the street toward number 4, where he sat down on the wall next to the cat. He didn't look at it, but after a moment he spoke to it. Facing you here, Professor McGonagall. He turned to smile at the tabby, but it had gone instead. He was smiling at the rather severe-looking woman who was wearing squeak glasses exactly the shape of the marking the cat had around its eyes. She, too, was wearing a cloak and a mirror one. Her black hair was drawn into a tight bun. She looked distinctly rough. "How did you know it was me?" she asked. "My dear Professor, I've never seen the cat sit too stiffly. You'd be stiffy if you'd been sitting on that brick wall all day," said Professor McGonagall. "All day when you could have been celebrating. I must have passed a dozen feasts and parties on my way here." Professor McGonagall sniffed angrily. "Oh yes, everyone's celebrating. All right," she said impatiently. "You think they'll be more careful? But no. Even the Muggles had noticed something's going on. It was on the news." She jerked her head back in the Dursleys' dark living room window. "I heard it. Flocks of owls shooting stars. Well, they're not completely stupid. They were bound to notice something shooting stars down in Kent. I'll bet that the Dailies Diggle he never had much sense." "You can't blame them," said Dumbledore skintily. "We'll have precious little to celebrate for 11 years." "I know that," said Professor McGonagall irritably, "but that's no reason to lose our heads. People are being downright careless, but on the stress in broad daylight, not even dressed in Muggle clothes, swapping rumors." She threw a sharp sideways glance at Dumbledore here, as though hoping he was going to tell her something, but he didn't, so she went on. "A fine thing it would be if, on the very day you know who seems to have disappeared at last, the Muggles found out about us." "Oh, I suppose he really has gone," Dumbledore. "If it certainly seems so," said Dumbledore. "We have much to be thankful for. Would you care for a lemon drop?" "A what?" "A lemon drop. They're kind of muggle sweet. I'm rather fond of." "No thanks," said Professor McGonagall coldly, as though she didn't think this was the moment for lemon drops. "As I said, even if you know who was gone, my dear Professor, surely a sensible person like yourself can call him by his name. All this, who nonsense. For 11 years I have been trying to persuade people to call him by his proper name, Voldemort." Professor McGonagall flinched, but Dumbledore, who was unstinking to lemon drops, seemed not a notice.